Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we're talking about Zoom because it looks like Zoom is eavesdropping on all of our meetings after all, despite their current claims of privacy and security in the wake of all of that stuff. And here we go. And before I begin, I'd like to apologize if you hear thunder or rain behind me. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm here in the Chicagoland area, but obviously that is not why we are here. We are here to talk about Zoom and eavesdropping, and this is actually coming from Rolling Stone. They recently had an article on the proliferation, interestingly enough, of sex parties on Zoom, thanks to this whole pandemic, and that's actually not what we're talking about here today, obviously. I know. Anyway, moving on. Now, what a spokesperson said, basically revealing when talking to a reporter for the Rolling Stones, has the potential to turn Zoom upside down on their previous claims of privacy enhancements in the wake of these recent vulnerability disclosures on privacy and security that has plagued them. It's at least going to open up a whole new can of worms in terms of questions that we in the cybersecurity community now have for Zoom. But before we get to that statement that spokesperson made, let me give you the backdrop here. Zoom is not a fan of adult-themed parties on its platform, and this is according to them. And to quote the spokesperson before we get to that statement, Zoom's user policies explicitly prohibit any obscene, indecent, illegal, or violent activity or content on the platform. And again, this is them talking to Rolling Stone. So, if they don't allow these kinds of things, which I can understand as a policy, that kind of opens up the question, how do they police this? If these meetings are actually secure and these adult parties are password protected, and according to the article, they are obviously password protecting to defend against, for privacy, to defend against Zoom bombing and all of that, then Zoom shouldn't have access. Basically, they shouldn't have any way as a company to monitor for this in a live meeting. They literally just spent the last 2 or 3 weeks assuring everybody of this very thing. And this is what their spokesperson said to Rolling Stone on how they police this. And I quote, "We encourage users to report suspected violations of our policies, and we use a mix of tools, including machine learning, to proactively identify accounts that may be in violation." Now, machine learning is a key word here, and we're going to get to that. But to continue, the spokesperson continued that it would take, and I quote, "a number of actions against people to basically that are using it," and I quote, "for any activity that is harmful, obscene, or indecent, particularly as would be understood in the context of business usage." Now, this includes, and I quote again, "displays of nudity, violence, pornography, and sexually explicit material." Now, following suit, Business Insider had an article on this as well, and it wrote, and I quote, "It," meaning Zoom, "has remained vague about its methods for identifying offending users and content." The rest of the article parroted a lot of what Rolling Stone said. And so, if this is Zoom's official position, then this opens up the door for something like a Facebook or government-level surveillance within Zoom. Machine learning, that's the key word here, is artificial intelligence. And if they are going to identify, let's say automatically, if something illicit, let's say an adult-themed party is going on in their ecosystem on their platform, unless some user is reporting this actively to Zoom and they are retroactively looking at that, the only way they're going to be able to look at this is either one, they're going to have a Zoom employee that is looking at these meetings to see what exactly is going on there, which means they could be eavesdropping, or they're going to use artificial intelligence, which makes a lot more sense, because they can put firepower behind it and cover pretty much all of their meetings and start scanning these things to look to see if the artificial intelligence is picking up nudity or anything else, and then flagging this for Zoom. That's how they are going to identify these things outside of a user reporting. And by virtue of that, if we are enabling the end-to-end, quote-unquote, encryption from Zoom, they should have zero way or capability to actually look at what we're doing in a meeting. We could be murdering somebody live or just talking about today's accounting numbers or whatever that is, and everything in between, and they shouldn't have any way to know that, let's say outside of a user reporting something that they find, let's say, illegal. And so here we are. And if Zoom is being vague and is not giving Rolling Stone or Business Insider, and Business Insider came after Rolling Stone and began probing Zoom on these questions and their spokesperson, if they're not giving any kind of indication on this, that's a huge red flag in terms of what they are actually doing. They are eavesdropping on us and they don't want to admit it. That is my conclusion and my opinion on everything that I am reading here, because the only way you find and kill these kinds of things, these adult-themed parties or anything illegal, is if you are basically data mining it, if you're surveilling it, if you're eavesdropping on it, and it seems like they are, and it seems like they are not owning up to that while they are claiming to be private and encrypted. And I think that's something that we have to have a greater discussion about, because obviously nobody wants to see something illegal go on, especially, if I own Zoom, the last thing I would want is, something criminal being used, or being done on the platform that I own. But at the same token, then I can't really claim that I'm giving you end-to-end encryption and total privacy, because my employees or my technology will be able to monitor it. That's huge. I don't think people realize this. This is an actually very big deal, because Zoom has been working around the clock for the last couple of weeks to show the world how they are private, how they are secure, how you now, if you have a paid Zoom account, can opt out of having your meetings here in North America, establish its encryption system in China, which was actually happening as caught by the University of Toronto's research. So this is a huge, huge thing. This is something that I think we need to address, and I think this is something we also need to be aware about. Everybody that uses Zoom should be aware of this, that they're being monitored. And there's going to be a lot of people that just don't care, whatever, I'm not doing anything innocuous, but there are going to be people, for example, that are having business meetings on Zoom that are not going to want a company like Zoom basically to eavesdrop, to surveil, to understand what they're doing. That's a huge problem. And we've seen governments across the globe and major corporations across the globe actually stop using Zoom for very similar reasons. But this opens up a whole can of worms, and it's coming from Rolling Stone, which quite frankly was excellent reporting. That's a great catch. And so here we are. And I'd leave it up to you. I'd be interested to hear your comments on this, but this makes me want to stop using Zoom even more, which is also depressing too, because Zoom has also been super easy to use, but here we are. This is a whole new can of worms. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.